like today's podcast was one of my favorites to date. I had such a great, genuine conversation with Dr. Joe Dituri. He is such an interesting individual, and he really opened up about his personal story and struggle with a major traumatic brain injury that he had that caused him to contemplate a lot of things in his life and was a propeller for change. Dr. Joe is a former officer in the Navy, and he has a Ph.D. in Biomedical Engineering, and he's just a fantastic human. To add that, we had about a day and a half of hanging out before this podcast. We have some funny stories about the ice bath that we did and the workout that I took him through after. I don't think he was quite as much of a fan of that as I was, but lots of great things to share. We talk about hyperbarics and the benefits and actually the anti-aging that comes with hyperbarics. There's so much great information in this podcast, and I'm so glad you were here to listen to it, and I'm very excited to share this episode with you. So thanks for listening.
Today's episode is brought to you by the International Hyperbaric Association.
Joe, I can't tell you how awesome it is to have you here today. I've had such a great time. So you, just for the listeners, you flew in yesterday. We did a little impromptu hangout. We took the kids by the pool. You ended up babysitting a little bit. We didn't know. That was
They're
great.
great. I like hanging out with kids. I mean, kids are the essence of everything, right?
They are. They keep you young. That's for sure. They keep you young, and then they make you feel old. Once they go to sleep at night, you're like, oh my gosh. So, but honestly, I don't think that was the highlight for me. The highlight for me so far in hanging out with you was this morning doing the best ice bath I have ever done.
Personal best?
Yes, I actually got my shoulders under the water. I actually got up to my chin, which I have for sure never done. I mean, at one time I pushed my shoulders under the water just a little bit, and I was like, kind of like I just dropped my shoulders, but it didn't
No.
I tried to not get my neck in the water because it's so, I don't know why that is the point for me. Like the shoulders going underwater is really where I start to lose it, and it becomes, it's always challenging, but that part for me is like the last little bit that feels like it kind of breaks the camel's back. But today, it sucked just as much, but it was better having a buddy.
Yeah. Everything's better with another person anyway. I mean, in general, everything's better. But yeah, getting down to here is an important part of the ice bath, in my opinion, right? You cut off the carotid pulse, and what you're trying to do is disconnect the vagus nerve from the rest of the body. The vagus nerve is one of the cranial nerves, so you basically want to get that nice and chilled so that you can be in that state of zen.
Yeah. Well, it took me a little bit to get there, but I think we're in the water for about 4 minutes. And I think right around that 3-minute mark, I really started to feel much better.
Oh, yeah.
That's when
that overwhelming feeling comes over you, and it's like, oh, this isn't really that bad. And then before you know it, you'll start liking it, and then everybody be coming, be like, you got to go ice bath with me. It'll be great.
Yeah. I'm trying to get my dad into it. he was a swimmer and a Green Beret himself. So I know he has it in him. Like, he's tough.
Yeah.
But now he's kind of also like relaxed and comfortable, a little complacent, a little bit like, oh, come on, that. But hey, I've got him doing hyperbarics. My mom too, by the way. But my mom's always kind of like, yeah, what's the new thing? I want to try it. And my dad's kind of like, oh, that's hogwash. He's a little bit of like,
okay,
like, make it make sense.
Already.
Yeah, make it make sense. But he's really turned a corner. So he's doing hyperbarics. They have one at their house. They have a soft shell chamber. Yeah. And, he's doing a lot of the things. He's not drinking out of plastic water bottles anymore.
Yeah.
He's reusable water bottle. I mean, these are big steps for get my dad on this. But, he's never felt better. And I'm like, Dad, you got to try the ice bath. I was like, I really think that, and I got my mom taking cold showers. And when my pool was really cold in the winter, it was probably around, well, not really cold. We'll say 57. That's still cold. But we spent a longer duration at 57 degrees, right, staying there. But it was hilarious getting my mom in the water. She's like somebody, she has to jump in. I don't like to jump in. I like to walk in like what we did today. Mm-hmm. She jumped in. And she looked like a cat that had just saw, a dog that was going to, she's screaming and,
But remember, it's supposed to be a calming event, right? When we walk in there, it's supposed to be like,
yes.
And the reiteration of your own personal strength and the reiteration of the fact that you can do anything you want to do. It's just a mental challenge, right? Like every other mental challenge in this world, right?
And we did that today. I may not have enlightened her to that. It might have just been my own ignorance in the process, or it might have been my joy in seeing her struggle a little bit. I'm not sure which one it was. So we'll leave that for another.
There's some counseling issues there maybe, but I don't know.
But she did great. So back to today anyways. We did a little breath work before we got into the water, which is something that I haven't played with a lot in getting in the ice bath.
So interestingly enough, like if you want to activate, if you want to be in fight or flight, you breathe through your mouth, right? I'm fighting, right? You want to calm down, you breathe through your nose. You take one of those breaths, you can't help but be calmer than you were before, right?
Right.
So this is sympathetic. This is parasympathetic. So parasympathetic is that reaction you want.
Right.
You want to just chill everything down. It's not supposed to be
so
like
the mouth is sympathetic, the nose is parasympathetic.
Yep, exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you take that breath in through your nose and out through your nose, now all of a sudden you're regulating your own heartbeat. You're just trying to chill yourself out.
Yeah.
So
why did we do that, like, kind of shake out? We're like, we're kind of shaking and like, what is that about?
So they call it the lion's roar or something like that when it comes to meditation, right? Because I'm a fidgety skeptic, right? Like I'm a special operations officer, retired, right? I don't believe in much of that hoo-ha. But if you just take all these jitters and take them out and just be like, the more ridiculous you are, the better it is, because then you go, all that ridiculousness is out. My face is calm now. Now I'm like,
Kind of a way to surrender, right?
Yeah, surrender, focus, turn inside, right?
Yeah.
That look inward.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you kind of walking me through it too. I mean, I don't know how you were speaking so calmly in 43-degree water, but you're pretty good at that. It's like you've done it a time or two before.
It's chill. Mine is a lot colder than that. Mine's, I want to say 34 or 35 regularly. You know, there's always ice making all the time. So, but I mean, look, the ice bath is great. You get 250 times the endorphins. You get a 13% increase in brown adipose tissue, which is that mitochondrial dense sort of tissue. It's the good fat.
And why is that important? I mean, I think I kind of know in a way, you know, the mitochondria produces the energy of the cell, right?
Powerhouse. So exactly it. That's exactly it. It's that simple. Like little kids have brown fat. You know, adults, like we were talking about kids earlier, like adults, we like start to get that, ick, you know, that white fat, ew, you know, we talk about visceral fat, right?
Yep.
Like, oh gosh, we don't want really that. So how do we do it? Diet, exercise, keep things moving, right?
This is like the Wim Hof thing, right? I mean, he's got a lot of brown fat.
Oh yeah, so Wim Hof is a terrific guy. He and I talk on the phone a lot, and I was supposed to go out there this year, but we're still working on that.
Okay.
Working on our schedule.
I followed some of the interesting studies on him, and I've read his book, and really, he's a fascinating individual. But I know that he has higher levels of brown fat.
Yeah.
And he can keep his body warm in cold situations
so
much more effectively.
And mentally, he realizes that you can do most things. Now, is it going to be mental toughness to take your, they're going to cut your arm off, let's be mentally tough? You might need some anesthetic, right? But can you get through most things mentally? Yes, you can get through most. And you know, I mean, look, man, you're in the fourth round, you're gassed, you're like, okay, you got one more round to go. You know, what do? You flip the switch and you go, okay, I'm going to go into beast mode.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, it's kind of exactly what we do, mind over matter.
Yeah, and we were talking about if whether I listened to Andrew Huberman or not, and I'm such a big fan of his, and it was let's see if I can say this right. I said it earlier, the mid-angulate, now I'm going to mess it up. See, I said it when it was no pressure, and now there's pressure, and I'm like, now I just want to put my gloves up and just be like, oh, let's just punch something, let's not think. Anterior mid-cingulate cortex.
Cortex, exactly.
Okay, there we go. That part of your brain that gets bigger and more developed when you do hard things.
When you do things you don't want to do. I don't want to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym anyway. I don't feel good today. Okay, So?
Yeah, do it anyways, right?
I mean, you talk about like that attitude, that mindset. See, so I come out of the special operations community, you come out of the UFC community, right? It's like, okay, they're the same sort of creatures because there is no, right? It's like, okay, attack that hill. Okay, attack that opponent. Okay, right? Like I got to do this. It's on my list of stuff to do. I'm going to check that list off, right? So
yeah, and we do it because it's hard. And there's something so rewarding about the challenge of overcoming. For me, the ice bath is a real mental battle. It is very difficult for me to get in an ice bath. I absolutely hate it. Now I know nobody enjoys it, but honestly, I don't think there's anything in the world that I hate more than an ice bath. Nothing.
So what do you do when you hate something?
Well, if I commit to it, I do it anyways.
Embrace the suck, right?
Yeah.
Just make somebody do it with you and make somebody not let you get out for 4 minutes or 5 minutes or 3 minutes. But it's not a measuring contest, right? It's not you're cool if you can stay in for 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's
no,
it's not good. Not even a good idea.
It's not a good idea. It really isn't. So 3 to 5 minutes, about 3 to 5 times a week, depending on how much time you actually spend in there. So you don't want to overdo it in the ice bath. It's not like you're going to die, but yeah, there's some bad things that could happen. So the one thing about ice baths is there is some sort of an amnesia component to it. There's a very detailed, complex medical terminology for it, but 1 in every 100,000 people come out of the ice bath and they have this short-term memory lapse, usually about 24 hours. So it's one of those things, you recognize that it could be that, and then you just take a deep breath and relax, right? But something that actually could happen. And it's one of the only things that the medical community can balk at. They can go, see, that could hurt you. Yeah, well, you're right. It could. 1 in 100,000 people have that sort of a reaction, but it's not that big of a deal and it goes away. It's totally transient.
So let's talk a little bit more before we move on, a little bit more of the benefits of the ice bath, because we were talking earlier over lunch, and you're like, man, I was kind of getting addicted to this. And I was saying, I know that there are a lot of people who have used it to overcome addiction, whether it be alcohol, whether it be, you actually, I think you said something of a statistic about the comparison of was it endorphins with cocaine versus like an ice bath, and how much more powerful and longer it actually works with an ice bath.
So the apparent thing, now I'm not a cocaine user, so I just want to tell you that right now. But like apparently you can get 250 times the amount of endorphins that you would normally get from using an ice bath. And the only thing that we have on this planet that we can get that amount of endorphin rushes from cocaine. So it's very similar. And cocaine's got a shorter lifespan. It's only about 30 minutes or so, whereas the ice bath is, look, like we got out and I'm still on fire.
I know, I feel good. I'm buzzing.
And you took the entire life out of me at that workout. So I was like, oh,
Not to mention the workout we did right after that.
Exactly, right? I should be like dead on the floor right now, but I'm great and I'm still popped up, so.
Yeah, I've used the ice bath to get myself out of a funk. If I've ever feel like I'm in a depressed state, which is actually even harder at that time to then get myself up and be like, I'm going to do the thing that sucks the most in my entire life, the thing I hate the most. But I know on the other side of that, I always feel 100 times better.
Oh, yeah.
Once I warm up, the amount of endorphins, the flip that gets switched and pulls me out of that place that I'm in, that funk that I'm in, whatever it is, the situational suck of life sometimes just happens. And you're just like, man, I just, don't feel great right now. I will go and get myself into cold liquid and hate myself even more for it, and then be so glad and thankful that I did.
100%, right? Yeah. It's like, I don't feel like going to the gym. I'm going to the gym. I don't feel like going to the ice bath. Well, I'm doing the ice bath. I need it to click me out, right?
Yeah.
So 100%.
No, that's one of the most powerful things I think about the ice bath. So if you're considering it, or if you haven't done it, I'm just gonna say, just do it.
Yeah.
Just go in there, embrace it, and bring a buddy with you so that you can maybe laugh at each other a little bit. That always helps lighten the mood a little bit.
No, you did great. And honest to God, I'm proud of you. I know you don't need me to say those words to you, but like, I'm proud of you that you were like, hey, I'm going to take this chance. I'm going to let this person do this with me, for me. Come down. I'm going to submerge all the way to here. I was like, okay, I thought you had a problem here. And you're like, you just did it. Like, talk about ultimate trust. Oh, I was like beaming. I was standing behind you. You probably couldn't see me, but I was like beaming. I'm like, she trusts me. Oh my God. Like, Misha trusts me.
I love it. Well, you kind of had your hand just on the back of my neck, and I was so grateful for just like the little tiny bit of warmth that gave.
Just that little bit of support. I didn't want to move it because I know you would have gotten cold, but it was more like, hey, I'm supporting your head from going underwater.
Yeah, it was emotional and mental support too, of just the trust factor there. But I also remember like secretly being grateful that there was just like a little added warmth.
Just that little bit.
Yeah. And then we got our butts kicked in a great workout after that. Oh. It was fun. Well, you're at altitude right now. You live in Florida.
Yeah,
so
I'm at altitude, and she did hand me my entire life right there. It was miserable, but it was great. Yep. I had a UFC workout, and I used bands that I never use and things that I don't normally do, and skiing and weird stuff. Yeah.
Let's talk about traumatic brain injury. Oh. Because you and I have both experienced traumatic brain injury, and in my field, and honestly in life, I don't care if you were an 11-year-old kid and you fell off the slide and hit the back of your head. I mean, one of Daxton's, my son's friends, was just at Disney, and he was sitting on one of the ropes, and somebody else went and sat next to him and flipped him right on the back of his head. I mean, this huge knot. And he's just turned 4. So, I mean, we've all had traumatic brain injury. It's pretty much unavoidable. I feel like if you're getting through life and you haven't had that happen, then I don't know what you've been doing, but you haven't been living. So of course, I have been knocked completely unconscious at times. I know I've sustained my fair share. I do feel like there are things I've done to help mitigate that, because I had a brain scan done actually at the Ammons Clinic. Mm-hmm. They use what is the mechanism that they use there? They measure the blood flow.
It's diffuse tensor imaging.
Maybe something
by MRI with diffuse DTI, right?
I think
MRI
that might
with
be.
DTI. I don't remember what exactly he uses, but he's got a really whiz-bang setup.
Yeah, he does. And I was very happy to hear that my brain isn't as bad as I thought that it was going to be. And I think that hyperbarics had a lot to do with that personally. That's just my personal testament. But let's just start with traumatic brain injury, what it looks like, what's your thoughts on that, and then we'll just kind of move into, and maybe share your story too with.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. So TBI is kind of a spectrum disorder, right? It's like you only need 1.09 times gravitational acceleration to give yourself a traumatic brain injury. So, well, that was 1.9, right? Like a short stop in a car. Roller coasters are 3G. Right? Firing a weapon is 40 or 50 gravitational, right? It's like bam, bam, bam. You get that pulse that goes through the wave.
Kind of feeling,
exactly.
Right? I remember going to like a gun firing range. I've only been like a few times, but there was a water bottle, a big jug, a gallon one that was sitting there, and people were shooting the guns, and the water was like, poof, poof. It was kind of like exploding a bit, and I was like, wait, what's going on in my head right now? This little bowl of jelly right here.
What's going on in your head? That's exactly it. And once we realize that, we go, okay, so traumatic brain injury, you could start here and you could be here. And it could be as far as, hey, you can't speak, you can't walk, you can't talk, you're in that state. Or you just like, I feel off, right? So anywhere in between. So to say traumatic brain injury is like to say you have cancer. It's like, oh God, you could have anything, right?
Yeah.
So what we try and do is we're trying to identify what to do in this problem area. There is no FDA-approved measure of traumatic brain injury at this point. On today, there are 0 clinically approved treatments for traumatic brain injury. 0. Now, everybody's trying to throw the kitchen sink at it, but they're all just doing it one at a time. And that, I think, is the problem. So let me go back on my story. So here I am, a brain injury guy, and I'm a researcher for brain injury. I'm increasing cerebral blood flow. I'm doing what I think is the best. And, God told me, hey, Joe, make a right turn. And I'm like, no, I got it, God, I got it. I'm going. And then he said, no, I said make a right. And I said, yeah, but I got it, I'm going. And then he threw a 6,000-pound SUV at me. So I was stopped at a stoplight. And, my light turned green, and a woman ran the light at 9 o'clock in the morning, and pow, totaled my 1947 Chevy. But I woke up in the back of an ambulance, and they're like, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, who are you? Where am I? What's this? What's going on? Right? So I get to the hospital, and the doctor's like, okay, there's some bad things going on here. I might have to drill your head. You're going up to the ICU for a couple of days. I'm like, the intensive care unit? That sounds really bad. I don't know what any of those words mean, but it sounds really bad. He's like, I might have to drill you. I was like, oh, here we go. So I go up there. I spent 2 days in the ICU, 5 more days in the hospital, 7 days. And these guys, they put their arm around you and they go, you know what you need? A tincture of time. And I just I got so angry. I was like a tincture of time. I will come unglued. I will come over this table. Are you kidding me?
Like, what does that even mean?
Right. Like, all you need is time and you'll get better because you have a traumatic brain. I'm like, that's all you got? I'm like, brain games, hyperbarics, neurofeedback therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. Tell me.
Red light?
Yeah, red light therapy. Why not? Right?
Yeah.
Why not? So I took this tack that, remember, God was telling me to make a right, but I was like, I got it. I'm just going to keep doing hyperbarics. So I said, discharge me. I'm going to go home and I'm going to do hyperbarics. And it just wasn't enough. So like September 7th, the accident happened. I got out on the 14th of September of 21, by the way. And then by the middle to end of October, I was sitting at my desk crying all the time, angry all the time. Like I want to pull the steering wheel off the car angry, right?
Which is not typical.
Oh, this is I'm so chill. Nowadays, I'm so chill. When I was in the military, I was a very different cat. But now I'm pretty chill, and I'm a researcher, so I spend most of my time alone and in a small office. But, so I got no problem being alone. But and then it's like I had suspicious behavior. Like I suspected my accountant of cheating me. Now she has all the passcodes to everything. She could probably take money from me, and I'd never know, right? Like, but I was like, wait a minute, all of a sudden, I'm like, I have this suspicious behavior. So if you look it up, stereotypical prefrontal cortex injuries, exactly that. Anger, emotion, suspicious behavior, risk-taking behavior, crazy stuff, right?
We hear these guys in the NFL like murdering their girlfriends or like doing crazy things, and I can't help but sit back and say, look, I'm not condoning the action, but are we even questioning the mechanism behind it, the potential brain damaging things that are going on in the NFL? It's like nobody's talking about this, the CTE and the TBI. And like when the brain doesn't work right, you can be in an altered state that doesn't seem viable or reasonable to people who are not in that state. But when you're in like locked in a fight or flight, or your brain's just not firing correctly, there's probably there's more to it, I think. It's just not as simple as saying, well, this is right and this is wrong.
So one thing that we truly know is that the hippocampus, which generally regulates all that, will wind up shrinking, and then the amygdala winds up enlarging, right? So the amygdala is not good at processing emotion. That's the fight or flight thing, right? So of course you have no ability to process emotion. Of course you have anger all the time. Why? Your amygdala is just getting bigger and bigger.
And that's when kids are, when they're little, they don't really have the prefrontal cortex developed, right?
It's not developed, so exactly.
That's why they get very emotional.
They get very emotional and just don't know what to do with it. And like we tell these little kids, hey, that's bad. Stop crying. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. That's what we were told.
Right. Yeah, I know.
But no, the bottom line is...
I don't tell my kids that, by the way.
Oh, good.
I think we've done, better.
We have to change,
better.
right?
Yeah. I'm learning, that now this is not so easy. And it's hard for me sometimes to keep my emotions in check. How can I expect a 4-year-old or 5-year-old or 3-year-old and my kids, as they're developing, to constantly have something that is hard for me to have at all times, and they are held to a higher expectation. Wait a second, hold on, make it make sense. Like, we got to dial it back. What are you going through right now? How can I help you get to the other side of this? I'm not going to take it personal right now.
Exactly.
You're freaking out and you're angry and you're upset because I said turn the TV off. We're turning the TV off because I said it's time to turn the TV off. But you have a right. You're allowed to be a human and have feelings about it. But how can I get you to the other side of that? And that's what I try to do.
And I must tell you, one thing that I just got to applaud you on. You are so much better at me about being grounded, about being emotionally stable when dealing. Because I watched you for the past day dealing with your children, and I'm just like, that was good. Oh, God, wish I had done it like that. Like, wow. Like, and I'm hoping. And you don't give in to them. You don't just go, oh, here, just take some candy and go away.
No,
or
take
the
thing.
TV screen and go away. No, you're
I'm very strict with boundaries. Boundaries do not move. My children will meet the expectation that I feel like is very reasonable for them to meet because they can and they're capable of that. Yeah. Now, are they going to melt down along the way? Maybe. That's okay. I'm not going to take it personal. I will be your calm the best that I can.
Right.
And I will get you to the other side of that because that's how we have to do it. I think we have to do it thousands of times for it to sink in as our children are growing and developing and growing all these amazing neurons at the speed that they grow, their brains learn. They will pick it up, and that will be a skill set that they will be able to use for the rest of their life. And any time that they get in a hard situation, they're going to be able to go, okay,
right.
I'm upset right now. That's okay.
Right.
I can deal with it in this way.
See, you know how to do that right now. Like, you know how to what we call self-soothe, right? Kids today don't know how to self-soothe. People don't know how to self-soothe. So it's like, hold on.
I don't think they ever really knew how to self-soothe. Oh, the breath is everything.
Everything, right? That's me self-soothing. Holy mackerel, I'm a little anxious. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm great.
I think it was, I don't remember if it was Huberman or if it was on Dr. Mindy Peltz's show. I listen to these all the time, these podcasts, but I remember learning that the way that we can manually override going into fight or flight is through our breath work. And it can take just 3 breaths. Sometimes for me, it's just one that I need just to reset. I'm transitioning from running to this, going to that. Now I'm going to pick up my kids. I need a deep breath real quick. I got to reset. Now I'm going into mob mode. Now I'm going into training mode. Now I'm going into podcast mode. Now I'm going into this mode. How do I reset before so that I just don't bubble over the top and become consumed by all the wildness that sometimes feels like it's out of our control? It's my breath. It is breath work. It is everything.
Well, you called it, and you called me out on it when we sat down to eat. I sat down, I put my hands up, I took that big deep breath, and I was like, okay, I'm going into eating mode, which means go slow, chew everything, relax. What are you grateful for? Okay, my life is so abundant. Okay, now I'm going to eat, right? As opposed to because I just finished working out and I haven't had any food since, last night. So I'm like, oh my God.
Hungry,
but
right?
You're not. It's not a problem. The food's right there. We'll be okay. So you take that reset breath.
Well, and from the military background too, right? We were talking about that because like my dad, he used to like sit down and like elbows like he was guarding his food and it would just like shovel it in and be like, gone. Just like one big inhale.
Well, I was the guy that was in charge, right? So I eat last. And my guys eat first. But I'm the last person to sit down. I'm the first person to stand up. So that means I got to be faster than all my guys. So it's like, okay, got it. Boom, done. And I roll out. Now, of course, we all have stomach problems and we all just need to take a breath and relax. But you don't often get to do that in war or in the military. Or
I had a friend of mine who went to the doctor and she was having all these digestive issues. Her stomach was just hurting and she was having problems. And they did all these tests and they couldn't find anything that was clearly wrong. And then the doctor, which surprised me because a lot of doctors don't ask about lifestyle. They're like, what is your lifestyle like? She's like, I'm a busy mom of 3. I'm busy, and he's like, how do you eat? She's like, I just eat on the go. I don't sit down. I don't eat. He's like, you're eating too fast. You're just busy. It's like, slow down. Yeah. Calm down, put yourself, but it is important to like check in and have those little states where it's like, hey, let's, and I've even have to work on that because I'll find myself running around being busy, eating on the fly, shoveling food in my mouth, not really enjoying it. And food is meant to be enjoyed. Hello.
Oh, hello.
I love food. So I definitely want to make sure that I get the most out of that experience and that I'm not just eating because, it's just something that we do and not being mindful about it, right?
No, 1,000%. And when I was on that traumatic brain injury healing journey, that's where I learned all of this breath work stuff. And it's like, okay, I knew about breath work.
That wasn't that long ago then.
Yeah. 21, September 7th of 21 is when I got hit.
Wow, so you didn't practice breath work or any of this?
Not really. I mean, look, I was a martial artist, but, Hapkido sort of breathing, Taekwondo a little bit, so I did that kind of stuff. But, so like I know Chi, I know breathing a little bit, but not meditation, real meditation, no way. Never even now I check in with that process, right? Now it's like it's this much criticality, but when you stop doing it, it becomes this much and then more and then more and then more and then more. And when you don't do it at all, it's like, wow, this is the most important thing that you could be doing. So it's not really that important, but it's important to just keep that slow, steady strain over a lifetime,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you're talking about traumatic brain injury and the traumatic brain injury experience that you had, what was your what does your research say on these things, and what does also your experience say on these things?
So first of all, we have no objective quality measures that say you're over a traumatic brain injury or you're better, right? So we don't know what you were like beforehand because nobody has DEXA scans or brain scans or whatever before they start fighting, right? We only give it to them afterwards. So we go, oh, we see some gray matter here. We see some dark spots on wait, was that there before? Where did that come from?
Yeah. Look, how much worse did it get?
Right. How much worse is it? Like we all know, like football, UFC or any kind of fighting, right? In general, and military, all these are things that expose people to, incongruent blasts, if you will.
Yep.
A normal football game, you get 3 to 5 35-mile-per-hour crashes. I don't know when the last time you were in a 35-mile-per-hour crash, but they're pretty violent. And that's slow.
I never understood why the helmets have to be so hard on the outside. Personally, this is just off topic, but I always thought, like, why can't they cover it with some kind of a like slightly padded, slippery material so that they don't bounce off of each other? Because it's that change in direction, right? That causes
the coup contra coup, right?
Right, but they bounce. So yeah, they have all this technology on the inside that's supposed to help, but it's the impact from the outside hitting the outside that changes direction on those helmets so fast. Like, why don't they have some kind of gel, like some kind of fabric? They could still make cool designs on fabrics, some nylon or something like that they pull over it and but help it move. I don't know. There's my $1 million idea. Somebody's going to make money
Some
off
of the stuff
that,
that my colleagues are doing right now is they're at the University of South Florida is they're putting accelerometers in the spine of cadavers, and then we're shooting blasts at them, and then all of a sudden they're measuring this acceleration in this direction, this direction, this direction, in all directions. So we're trying to figure out what actually happens when these people get blasted, when somebody gets in a car accident, when somebody gets hit and they go back like that, right? I mean, I've seen some really big hits, right? So when you're working with this traumatic brain injury, that's the other thing. We have the spectrum of this disorder. So am I going to treat you the same way as I'm going to treat this person out here? Well, God, no, that's not right. But the problem is none of them are you going to open up their head. Very few of them, maybe the ones on this end of the spectrum. But I'll give you, for instance, in the knee is a 3 degree of freedom joint, right? Pretty simple joint. The orthopedic surgeon's walks up to my daughter and says, hey, listen, I got to go into your knee. And I'm like, why do you have to go in there? He's like, well, I can't see anything on the imaging. And we're down to 1 millimeter swaths on the imaging. So the imaging's actually there, but he can't really see enough. And he's going to go in and open up the knee and clear it out and clip something and then close the knee back up and then put it all away and call it good. But we're not going to go in the head. But there's an 8 millimeter hemorrhagic stroke for me in the prefrontal cortex, but we're not going to do anything about that. We're just going to have a tincture of time. And they just keep saying that over and over and over. And I opine that you should just not only do hyperbarics, you should throw everything at the problem, right? Because hyperbarics is known to increase cerebral blood flow, right? So, but there's other things that need to be done. We need to work on your breathing. We need to work on your neurofeedback therapy, your cognitive behavioral therapy, your structural energetic therapy, all of these therapies combined into one. You get a synergistic effect. That's my opinion.
Right.
So, and now do I have research behind that? Yeah, I have an N of 19 people that I've treated in this way, and every single one of them got amazingly better. But I still don't have any objective quality evidence. I have before and after EEGs, but it wasn't before the accident.
Right.
So we have this residual syndrome because you use special operations, same like UFC fighters, right? These people they're not normal. They're like here, they're above normal, right? So when they get a brain injury and they come down to normal, they have residual self-image, right? They go, damn, I used to be so much better than I am. Yep. And that happened for me because I'm sitting there, I'm trying to read a paper and I have a brain injury and I can't read and I'm getting really angry with myself, but I'm still functioning at a level that's higher than, the norm anyway. So I should be okay with what I'm doing, but I feel like I used to be better.
Yeah.
So that's a real change. It's a real change in the way you have to treat people and the way you look at treating people. So got to bring them back up to where they were before, and we don't know.
I wish that was like a prerequisite to being an athlete at the very least, like that we could, maybe there's something there with the UFC, like, hey, as people are coming in, why don't we just start getting them scanned so that we can see where they were and see where they're going. But I just feel like that is just like it's not talked about enough. The brain, it's not sexy, like nobody wants to talk about what's going on and the damage inside of our brain because of the sport we've chosen to do.
Well, we know what's going on. Like we see it. We know that these are all concussive events and that these are bad things. But Joe's opinion, I don't believe that anybody, NFL, anywhere, I don't think they want the scans.
Yeah.
They don't want the pre-scans because when you look at the post-scans, you go, oh, that's really scary. It's not good. We did that? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
you did.
They just don't want to have another thing to be responsible for, especially financially.
That's exactly it. It's all about the money.
And that's the thing is that when you're talking about these things, I agree with you, but it can be very expensive to try to accumulate those things for an average person, especially, you get in a car wreck and you're just, on your way to your 9 to 5.
Yep.
Now you've got your kids to take care of and it's hard to make ends meet to begin with because of inflation, all these crazy things. So, I mean, I don't know, I guess, would there be anything that the person who doesn't have the financial resources could possibly do? Like, what are some free things that you talk about? Breath work?
Free things, breath work, ice bath, pretty easy. Getting outside, moving, right? Getting in the sun, moving. The more you get blood flow, the more you make something called vascular endothelial growth factor, and that VEGF makes new angiogenesis. It makes new blood cells, blood vessels, if you will, and that increases blood flow. So, but you got to kind of work out a little bit, but you're not supposed to be working too hard. You know what I'm saying? So, so it's that happy balance. So those are real easy free things. But like the monetary side of it. So I'm a military guy, retired, and when I retired, I still have pretty good health care. When I got my traumatic brain injury, somebody said, hey, one of the doctors said, hey, you should try neurofeedback therapy. And I said, yeah, TRICARE. What do you think, neurofeedback therapy? And they said, not covered. Yep. So I went and I took $6,000 out of my own pocket. Now, who has that kind of money? Thank God I had, I'm okay. And it worked so well for me that I bought a $40,000 neurofeedback therapy machine, and I gave it to my center, and everyone that comes through my center gets treated with neurofeedback therapy. And it's like, oh, wow. Hey, this stuff works. It's pretty good. But I just didn't want some E1 who got out of the military because they got blown up or whatever to not have access to this care because their insurance doesn't pay for it. That sucks. No. It's a money thing. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So who are you treating at your clinic? What's the name of the clinic, by the way?
So the clinic was, I've now closed the clinic, by the way, because I took another job at the University of South Florida where I can help more people. But everybody that went through that, I took football player. So remember, I was in September of 21. And then by December of 21, I was ready to make the program, and by February of 22, we started the first two people. We took an NFL player and we took a Green Beret, and we put them side by side and said, you're going to be running mates. You're going to be buddies, battle buddies, if you will. You're going to go through 8 hours a day, every day at my clinic, and you're going to do stuff.
For how many days?
For a whole month.
Okay.
So we continued to train them together, and they would be side by side getting treatments, the cognitive behavioral therapy, the neurofeedback therapy, the structural energetic therapy, the life coaching, all of the breath work stuff, all of the meditation stuff. And these cats, when they were done, they're like, you don't understand. You saved my life. And one of the people that came through was a football player, and his wife was a physician. And she's like, yeah, I saw all of everything that you're doing. It's not going to make a difference, so it really doesn't matter. You can do it. 2 weeks into it, 2 weeks and 1 day into it, she comes to me and goes, all right, what the hell are you doing to my husband? Because I have a different man at home. What the hell? I want to know. I want to understand. I was like, oh, now you're here. Okay, high five. Yeah, now we can get on board, right? But it changes people. So, and it seems to be a lasting effect. And one of the Green Berets that we treated, he went out and he went to a concert and for veterans, and like 3 or 4 people fell out of the conference, and he literally was a medic, and he wound up saving 3 people's lives at that conference. So I'm like, you save that one guy, and then that one guy saves 3 people, and like, it's like the hair commercial, right? And then so on and so on and so on. So hopefully everybody's just paying it forward and giving and doing, and so military and those who need it. Like I treated a wrestler, that kind of stuff.
You've heard me talk about hyperbaric oxygen therapy in the past. I love HBOT. It is a must for me as an athlete because it increases oxygen intake to ensure that I have the best healing and decreases inflammation in my body, which I don't think should be reserved for just athletes. I think everybody should have the opportunity to learn and experience how amazing HBOT is. Research has shown that systemic chronic inflammation, also known as SCI, can lead to diseases that represent the leading causes of disability worldwide. An incredible nonprofit organization that I support is the International Hyperbaric Association. They have focused on sharing the benefits of HBOT with the medical community and consumers for over 2 decades. Their mission is to provide accessibility for those in need to improve their health and well-being. Go to ihausa.org to support them today.
So tell me a little bit about neurofeedback. I've been interested to learn a little bit more about that, but can you make a nutshell version for those of us who are interested in what the heck is that?
So basically, do you know who Pavlov is and Pavlov's dog?
Yeah.
Ding, salivate, ding, salivate. Every time you're going to eat, you're going to salivate. The dog did, all right? So it's a Pavlovian response. Great. Well, when you're sitting there and you have this EEG on your head and you're getting wired up, the screen closes and it's basically you see nothing but black. And then your brain just stumbles upon neurogenesis, this process that we want to work on. Your brain stumbles upon it. And then when it does it,
Are you listening to something though?
you're just watching the TV.
Oh, okay.
You're watching TV or you're listening to a song or you're playing a game, but the same thing. All of these are just like response to you making neurogenesis. When you do that, the screen then opens up and you can see it and you like that. So you're still trying to breathe, but then it closes again. And when it closes, your mind goes, hey, I want that response. I want that Pavlovian ding, salivate. I want that. So it's going to try and start doing that. So it's doing it and doing it and doing it. Well, the thing is, my tech is sitting in the corner, now turning up the gain. More. So it's harder and harder and harder. So it's mental work that you really can't do. It's all behind the scenes. It's all Pavlovian. It's all this response, this automatic response. But what it's doing is it's making neurogenesis, right? The same thing as angiogenesis, only for neurons in the brain, right? And you're increasing these neural pathways. And yes, the human brain can do that, much to the chagrin of all the people who said you can't. Yeah, they found out, and the guys won the Nobel Prize for it in like 17 or something. But yeah, you can now make neurons. So
that's incredible,
right?
That's a lot of people are going to be like, "What?" I know I am.
Well, you can come out to Tampa, Florida, and hang out with us, and you can still do that.
Man, I wanted to come out there when you spent 100 days under the water. We'll get into that. Hang tight. We're going to talk about that for sure because you did something that no one has done before, and that's going to be a great topic. But before we move on through this one, what was your journey like from that September 7th to December? And like, what did you do in order to get your brain? And do you feel like you've like fully recovered? Where do you feel like you're at? And how long do you think that it took for you to feel like the resemblance of yourself? Like, this is okay. I'm close to base now. I'm close to what I was before this accident.
So September 7th got hit. September 14th, I got out of the hospital. I started treating myself. The middle of October, I'll be frank with you, I was suicidal. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't process. And I was just like, I'm trying to read papers. I'm trying to do Joe, right? I'm trying to do Joe being a researcher. And I couldn't. So I decided to take my own life. And my birthday's December 8th. But I'm Catholic, right? So it's like, when I get to the pearly gates, I got to be able to say to somebody that I did everything that I could, right? So from that moment on, the middle of October, late October, I said, okay, my date's December 8th. I have to do everything. But I'm a scientist. I couldn't just do it serially. I couldn't just do hyperbarics and then cognitive behavioral and then neurofeedback and then structural energetic and then I just didn't have the time. So I just lumped it all together. And then by Thanksgiving of that year, suicide was completely off the table. And then by the middle of December of that year, I started formulating the plan for the Traumatic Brain Injury Center that I wanted to build. And then by February of the next year, just a couple months later, holy mackerel, I was on fire. I was like, wow. So, and do I think I'm back to normal? I don't know. See, there are certain things that your body compensates for. I had strabismus surgery, that little lazy eye surgery when I was really young, and my eyes used to float around. So when I did that, they fixed my eyes, and basically I had double vision for a little bit. And then my brain compensated for that. Then when I got hit by the car and I got that, now look, 28 years of being in the military and being in several explosions and doing stupid things, right? None of that affected me negatively. Too bad. But this one car accident just pushed me over the top and did me wrong. I mean, I went back and my brain stopped seeing correctly. And all of a sudden, like your nose would be here and your nose would be here in this eye. So I had this off vision. That still hasn't come back, right? So nor do I think it will. But there's some compensating that you can do, and this is what we do when we do the life coaching stuff, to let them know, look, there's compensatory markers that you can do that you can hit. But so some things are never going to come back, but I feel better, stronger, faster, more adept mentally than I was, maybe even before I started, which is like, can we just tune people up that are not so bad, that don't have a traumatic brain injury? Maybe. So this is performance-enhancing drugs, right?
Yeah.
We're looking about, it's competitive advantage. I want to give you the competitive advantage. Here, do all this junk. Is it proven in science? Well, not really, but is it going to hurt you? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that was the tack that I took.
Right. No, it makes so much sense. What are your thoughts on the other therapies that are making some waves right now, like ketamine, psilocybin, MDMA, right? What are your thoughts on this? Because I had my doctor, who's we talked about this a little bit on the show, who is my anesthesiologist as well. It's what he does for his job. And he administered ketamine to me once, and it was a life-changing experience for sure. I'm very grateful for that experience. And I talked about that more ad nauseum in our other episodes, so I'll just gloss over it here. But veterans, people with head trauma, people with suicidal ideations seem to be really benefiting from these treatments. So just wanted to know, while we're here talking about that, what are your thoughts on them?
Right. So the anecdotal data, because there are no objective quality markers yet, right, for healing a traumatic brain injury. So if we start with that, you're never going to know if anybody's better. But you know if you're better, right? I know that I'm better than I was, right? So the anecdotal data that we see right now sees that some of these things like ibogaine, like MDMA, like DMT, 5-MeO DMT, psilocybin, that kind of stuff has been reasonably effective in helping veterans and others get over their traumatic brain injury symptoms. So, but again, it's not FDA cleared. It's kind of off the books, and people are just doing it now. The one thing about ketamine, I opine that none of these drugs should be used in a, hey, let's get high mode. Now, I don't think you're not like that, right? But like, it's not that. So the dose should be just high enough. For instance, in ketamine, my opinion is 0.5 milligrams per kilogram body weight, right? So if you're that low, all it does is it takes down the wall. It's a dissociative, and it takes down the wall. And I got a tough guy wall, right? Tough guy. Well, take that wall away. Now what are you? Now you got to talk to a therapist. Now, if you're doing it in combination with therapy, oh man, the therapists that I talk to are like, this stuff is magic gold. I wish they would just let us do it. And,
You had something similar we were talking about in the ice bath, where you said that you kind of had like an epiphany. And I feel like that is also another free experience that you can kind of get to a point where the wall has to come down.
Yep. You have to do it religiously, and you have to do it, for me, what I had to do it was in really, really, really cold water. And, you have to have somebody that's willing to talk to you and push the buttons, get a therapist, and then work through that. Because what happens? You're getting in that ice bath, and what are you? You're starting to get in fight or flight, but you're trying to control it. But then you're talking. And now you're talking about your problems. And now you don't have this defense wall. You have two things that you can do. You can try and keep your body regulated and not uncontrollably shiver. And then you can maybe talk. And those are the only two things you can do, but you can't be in self-protect mode. You can't have the tough guy image up. It's not going to work. So yeah, I had a great breakthrough on my own about my dad, like he's an old Italian guy, and he just didn't have the capacity to throw his arms around somebody and say, I love you, I love you, I love you, So yeah, you go, hey, you just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it. I mean, well, and a lot has to do with our experiences. And I think once we can start to realize that, then we don't have to blame our parents for their shortcomings.
No.
You know what I mean? You start to realize like, oh, it's because of the experiences you had that made you the way you are. Just like the experiences I had makes me the way that I am. And once you realize that, then you can start to do something about it. Then you can start to change, be like, wait, I don't want to just passively raise my kids and let them pick up what they may from my experiences. I want to actively parent my children and try to be better from learning from my experiences and actually have an evolution and be a better person so that my ceiling becomes their floor. How much can I elevate myself? So my children can be propelled. They can learn. My children already know about breath work.
Yeah.
They've already started that. Like, oh my God, I wish that was I wish it was taught in school. I wish it was taught by parents. I wish it was more of a cultural understanding how important our breath is for how we regulate how we feel and how we deal with how I feel. Because when we come into stressful situations, it's all about how we deal with them. Because we're all going to have stress in life. We were just talking about this earlier. Yeah. How do we deal with the cold water? It's extremely stressful. Yep. And the best part is like taking a deep breath and realizing that I can get through it.
And who's in charge, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So the quote that I absolutely adore is, true nobility is not being better than your fellow man. It's being greater than your former self. Like if I'm better than I was yesterday, that's all I am. That's all I need. That's it. I'm great. So, and imagine constant, never-ending improvement. You just get better and better.
How did you get into all of this? I mean, what is your your story? You talk about, you throw it out there so lightly, that you were, you were in the military, but I mean, it's you're such a your story is like fairly complex, but I think it's very interesting. And I think the listeners deserve to know a little bit, how you got into this and how you went from that to being a researcher to being a scientist to wanting to help people.
Well, 28 years of being in the Navy, I came to the starting realization nowadays that I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I was doing it for my dad. I was doing it for my family. I was doing it for married, 3 kids sort of thing. And I was continuing down that path to be a good provider and a yes, sir, 3 bags full, right? Like I want to be a good naval officer. And I used to toe the line. And I was a little more tight than I am right now. I'm just telling you the honest to God truth. Like I'm pretty laid back now. I was a tight ass. I really was. But when you retire from the military and you say, hey, what are you going to be when you grow up? That was what Admiral McCraven asked me. Bill McCraven, while we're sitting there having a beer at his house, like, hey, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you think you want to? And I'm like, no.
How old are you at that time?
I was 45.
Okay.
45-ish, right?
I love that question at 45. Yeah. What are you going to be when you grow up?
Right? No.
But we never stop growing up.
Well, 28 years. You get in the Navy when you're 17, 18 years old, and then all of a sudden you're like blinked. Oh, it's from 45.
When I realized exactly what you're saying, this was like, I want to call this podcast Built for Growth. I almost called it Built for Impact because that's just kind of, I've been impacted by life and I've gotten through it. But more than that, it's not just that I was impacted and I got through it. I grew. And that's where I really started to understand, like, it is all about growth. It is all about adaptation 100%. And about growing to our environment. And like you said, being better than you were yesterday.
Yep. Well, I took that good long look inside because I knew that I didn't want to keep suckling off the government, right? I was done, right? 28 years, I gave mine and everybody in my family's fair share of military service. What did I want to do after that? It wasn't the military or wasn't helping the military. It was something not. So McCraven was like, hey, can you help me? Preservation of Force and Family. I did that for a little bit, and I realized that they were talking to veterans and talking wasn't working. So he's like, well, permission granted there, Aquanaut. Go ahead and figure out what you can do to help. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I should go back to school and get a Ph.D. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I went back and I got a Ph.D. in the easiest thing that I could at that point, which was biomedical engineering. And I just wanted to be able to write and research and do brain stuff, right? So it didn't matter to me, but, I did a great dissertation in my opinion. But, I wound up starting this research and now I'm doing all kinds of research, right? And then I got into the brain and then I'm doing what's going on with hyperbaric oxygen at this point. So you're just going down this road and it's this continual growth. And this is why I say, why my traumatic brain injury is the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me all this. I'll give you a perfect example. After my traumatic brain injury, I'm in there and there's a woman who has her kid, and the kid's like 27 years old, 250-pound big boy, right? Got a traumatic brain injury, and he's way over here on this side. He has no ability to, he can't even go to potty by himself, right? And they're still using terms like that while his mother's taking him in there, and he lives in an assisted living facility. So she takes him out, checks him in with me, goes into the chamber. He goes, I have to shed, right? And we're like, okay, we'll take you out right now. And he's like, I said I have to shed. So he reaches up back in the chamber and pulls the mic and the metal wires off of the back of the chamber, rips them off. I mean, he's a huge kid. We get him to the surface, we pull him out, there's feces everywhere, there's urine everywhere. His mother tries to start cleaning him up. He's throwing the shoe at his mother, like, I told you I had to shed. And then, the father takes him away. And then she looks at me with these big alligator tears and she goes, what's that going to cost? And I said, Mom, come here. I wrapped my arms around this woman and I hugged her and I said, don't worry about it. We'll take care of this crap. I didn't have the ability to do that before I had my traumatic brain injury. I had empathy after I had my traumatic brain injury, like you wouldn't believe. And I was like, okay, this was a good thing. My brain injury was a great thing for me.
What do you think about the traumatic brain injury? Was it that helped you grow in that area of empathy? Of like why? I mean, I don't think it always works that way where somebody just gets their head hurt and all of a sudden they become a more compassionate individual. Oftentimes it's opposite. So there's work done there. Like what, and you talked a little bit about it, but like, what do you think the thing was that really helped you get to a place where anger is, or the hardness isn't what's driving you?
All right. Well, the work, it's continual work. We continue to drive down this road, and I'll be honest with you. Like I said, this brain injury caused me to take a look inside at the type of human that I want to be, as the type of impact you want to have on the world. And you come to the startling realization, like we were talking the other day about, about your life. Your life is this short. And do you know your great grandfather's name? Most people don't, right? So that's 2 generations away. That's not a lot, right? So in a span of 100 years, nobody they're going to remember your name because forget about it, because you're you. But me, they're not going to remember my name, right? After 100 years, nobody's going to remember the name. And that's all you have is to influence other people, to give to other people. And then you just become, I don't want to say enlightened, but you look inside and you go, oh, there's nothing more important than giving to these kids. This is why I did the 100 days underwater, to give to the kids. This is why I'm like trying to give back to children, get them interested in science, technology, engineering, math. If we want to go to Mars, what we got to do to get there, like this is the kind of stuff that we need to do and giving back to that kid and that mom was so grateful. You have no idea, but it took me having a traumatic brain injury doing the hard work.
Yeah, for me, that was an experience I had post psilocybin, and ketamine helped too. But that's just my personal experience. It did take me to a place of deeper compassion and understanding that everybody who is struggling, no matter how angry they come off towards you, or what they're going through, is just like, oh, they haven't figured it out yet. They haven't leveled up. They haven't tapped in. Yep. They're still in the struggle state where they're resisting everything instead of submitting to and going with, just kind of like what you said. No, I'm going straight. Hey, I need you to turn right. Nope, I got the grip on the wheel. I'm not turning, and it's not until something either, just changes course for you. Jarring. And then you can, and when you can accept the change in course and kind of be like, okay, I'm not sure what's on the other side. I wasn't planning on going this way, but here we are. And I think I'm ready to surrender to what life has to offer.
Well, I think for me, it was pull down your pants and you're at despotism, right? You're ready to put a bullet in your head. And then you make the plan. That's like, okay, I better take a good solid look inside and figure out what the hell is going on because something's really bad. And then you can empathize with the fact that these people do want to kill themselves. Now we're up to 35 or 40 a day. I mean, I'm dying over here. I'm just dying to help people. That's just the
veterans, right?
That's just the veterans. Exactly. Yeah. So we're losing men 4-1 over women. I love you guys, but you guys talk better to each other.
Yeah.
You guys are kinder to each other. Like, my buddy's like, "Hey, you retard, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm good, you moron." Like that's how we talk to one another because we, suck it up, buttercup. Here's a box of Harden Up, princess. That's our mentality. But it's okay to cry. It's okay to have emotion, guys. It really is. I want you guys to take that away because it's important because your mental health, and yesterday was the last day of Men's Mental Health Month. Yeah. We didn't hear too much about it, did we?
No, I made a big post on it and talked about men's mental health. Yeah, there was a soccer video that I saw that really touched me, and it was a depiction of these 2 very different individuals. One is excited at the soccer game, and one is kind of solemn, just sitting there solemn. And then the next season comes around, and the one that was excited and happy and enthusiastic, he's the one that took his life. And the solemn guy, the one that was kind of just, you would think was the depressed one. So you never know when somebody's struggling, and I think men do a superb job at covering that up. A really good job at hiding, covering, and especially when you're talking about men who are veterans, who are warriors, who pride themselves on being tough and being protectors and winning and all the things, that you would think of, the atypical like masculine energy when they're embedded in that, and maybe they don't understand that there's got to be a balance between the two.
Right.
Like masculine is not a bad thing. I love masculine. Masculine's awesome, but you can't get buried in the masculinity that doesn't allow you to still be human.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what we're finding is that men cope better in groups. Men cope better amongst men, right? Because we can let our arms down. We can, everybody knows what we're going through. And when you trust people around you, you got to just get yourself to the point where you let yourself trust the other people. But
yeah. Okay. 100 days under the ocean.
100 days under the ocean. Why would you do 100 days?
That's my question. That's insanity. So, yeah, tell me about it.
Simply put, I wanted to steal the public's resolve of the mechanism of action of hyperbaric medicine, because I was underwater. Hyper meaning more than, baric meaning pressure. I was under pressure, just like a hyperbaric chamber, for 100 days. So during that time,
how deep were you? 23?
23 feet.
23
so
feet,
1.7 times the atmosphere that we're at right now.
Okay.
Right? So that pressure builds up, and the oxygen concentration is a little higher because it's just air, but it's
But you're
more
breathing
partial
ambient
pressure.
air.
Breathing ambient air, just like you would on the surface, right?
Okay.
So I wanted to show people that, look, well, first of all, there were 3 real reasons. I'm a biomedical engineer. I have a Ph.D. in biomedical engineering. We did biomedical research. Surprise! Blood, urine, saliva, electrocardiograms, electroencephalograms, pulmonary function test, all that junk.
You became your own guinea pig.
I became my own guinea pig. Why not? Nobody would help. Nobody else would let me do this to them, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you would talk me into spending 100 days under the water.
I tried.
Honest.
Okay, for your folks at home, I tried. I begged her. I was
going to join for one day, and I think I had a fight coming up, and something like that happens. But still, I'm not opposed to going down and spending a few days. I mean, especially with what you were telling me, I'm excited for you to enlighten the listeners to what you found living under the water for 100 days.
Oh, yeah. So the cool part is we found exactly what we thought we were going to find, right? A 50% decrease in every single inflammatory marker in my body, a decrease in cortisol, which what happens when you decrease cortisol? You increase testosterone, right? And now I have more testosterone. Yes.
Ooh, let's go.
Right? Yeah, right.
I wouldn't mind to have a little more testosterone. Man, I like testosterone. I don't get much of it being a woman, but it's sure a nice hormone.
And it's natural, right? All this stuff being natural, right? I went from 272 on my cholesterol, not that I think that the number's that important, down to 200, and I ate the same. I lost like 10 pounds right off the bat.
What do you eat, by the way? We've been eating together, so I think I already know this.
I eat exactly like you eat.
Yeah, meats. Yeah. You prioritize protein. You have a little bit of vegetables, fruits, clean.
Usually something green. I usually eat salad midday, but not with the portion that I got today of protein. It was crazy. But, I needed it after the workout. So, and I feel great because of that, right?
Yep.
But that's just the way that I eat. So usually about, 1 gram per kilogram body weight, I think, is what I eat protein wise. But all right. So the bottom line is that's not the only reason I did it. Not just to show everybody the results of, hey, these great things happened to me, but to also talk about the kids, science, technology, engineering, math. They see a scientist doing science in a cool environment, not, beakers and microscopes and lab coats and every kid's boring and, they're yawning in the back corner. And so if I talk to them about that, we have real problems that need to be solved. And then third and finally, we talk to every single person in the marine science community and talk to them about preservation, protection, and now rejuvenation of the marine environment. That's where we get 70% of our oxygen from. That's all this life comes out of it. So many medical cures come out of the ocean. We need to look in the ocean, look how to preserve it, and really look what we can use, what the fish can learn from us and what we can learn from the fish. A powerful antiviral called acyclovir comes from a sponge, an underwater sponge. We first found that, we can bring this to that. James Cameron, when he went to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, he found a little sea lice. Remember we were talking about sea lice the other day? Yeah. This sea lice was about this big underwater, right? Oh. So that sea lice, we pulled a DNA sample. It's a partial cure for Alzheimer's. Wait, I'm going to say that again differently. A partial cure for a disease that afflicts humanity existed at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, and we did not know it was there.
Yeah, how would we?
What the hell?
Right. Like that makes you curious at the very least.
Everything we need is on this planet. Everything we need is on this planet. We have yin, we have yang. We have dark, we have light. We have disease, we have cure. It's somewhere.
So what did you find with your own biomarkers after being under the water for 100 days?
So my biomarkers, like I said, my telomere length, for instance, my telomere
I would
length
ask you about that.
increased by 17%.
Okay,
right?
so some people might not know what a telomere is. Could you explain what that is?
On the end of a chromosome, you have these little replicator marks called telomeres. And every time you replicate that cell, you basically shorten that telomere. You use one, you use one, you use one, you use one, you use one. When all those telomeres are gone, the ends of the DNA fray, the ends of that chromosome start fraying, and then you can't replicate in that. And that's it. That's cellular senescence. That's death, right? But this is on a grand scale, right? This is not microscopic. We're looking microscopic. We're talking big scale.
And how often do we make new cells, by the way? Like, how often do we replicate these?
Oh, God.
Is that a twist? That's a curveball question.
No, I remember it at some point somebody told me. I want to say like once every 7 years, every cell in your body is replaced completely.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we have a whole new body, I think you're right, every 7 years or something. Yeah. Okay, so anyways, but that wasn't the point. I just got curious there.
Telomeres lengthening is crazy, right?
Well, it doesn't happen. I mean, it doesn't happen otherwise. It doesn't
just happen, right?
It doesn't happen otherwise. I mean, as you're living life, this is a true sign of aging.
Yeah. So my age at the time was 55 and a half, right? I'm now 56 and a half.
Biological, like what do you call that? Your
biological age, my real age, how old I've been walking around, how many years I've been walking around the planet, right? And then my extrinsic age before I went in, extrinsic age, you take all these epigenetic markers, all these things, and we kind of do this calculation of stuff, and we go, okay, they say I'm 44. And that's from spelling Jim with a G. It's from eating right. It's from drinking water. It's from taking care of myself, right? So extrinsically, I'm 44 before I start. When I did 100 days underwater and came out, 34. 10 years cut. 10 years.
Have you measured it again since you've been up? How long does that last for?
So it lasted for the first, I want to say 7 months, but then after that, we stopped testing. After 7 months, we stopped testing. But the age still stays up there. It still stays there because the telomeres, once they're lengthened until you use them and use them and use them and use them and use them, right? So you're still in the process of using, getting rid of them, using, getting, So it's a continual process. So I'm sure I'm probably, 36 now or something. I don't know. But, still, I'm not 56, which is what I am.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's like, it's just to wrap my head around the fact that something as simple as breathing oxygen under pressure could do.
Breathing air.
Yeah, breathing air. That's fair to say. Yeah, ambient. Let me correct me on that. Absolutely. Breathing air under pressure can do so much. This is why I'm such a big believer for athletes in recovery.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's just an incredible, it's kept me young in the game. I stay.
It's a performance-enhancing drug. It's not. Yeah. But it is a performance-enhancing drug, for crying out loud. But guess what? If it's illegal, then all the trees need to be arrested because they make oxygen. So, it's like, come on. We make these things like, we have to have a prescription for hyperbaric oxygen. You need a prescription. I personally think it's silly. That's just my opinion, but they do not necessarily reflect the views of all the people that I work for. But realistically, we need oxygen to survive. So we just breathe in the right amounts, the right way, and maybe you'll get through it.
Maybe we will, and maybe we'll get through it better. Maybe we'll grow from it all.
Nobody gets out of this life alive, man. So you may as well smile. You may as well enjoy it. You may as well wrap your arms around somebody. And, just one parting thought, when you think about the person who cuts in front of you in the car line or that's speeding or that needs to get somewhere, just empathy. Just be like, oh, wow, that person's life just must suck.
Yeah,
I'm so happy.
They haven't figured it out.
Right.
They haven't tapped in. They don't know yet. Like there's more to life, I promise, than just being so upset about whatever it is that's upsetting you. I remind myself that all the time. When I get in a high stress situation, and I'm just like, I'm so frazzled, and I'm rushing my kids to school, and I'm hey, get in the car, let's go. You got to get hurry. Like, kids don't understand time. It's like if I have poor time management or if I have poor load management, my kids suffer because they're like, Mom, we just want to be in the present moment. We just want to play with you. I know you told me to get in the car seat and you ran back into the house to get the water bottle you forgot, and we hopped in the driver's seat and are now like going to take even longer because we unbuckled ourselves. Like, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, you don't understand. Like, Mom, why do we have to hurry? And then I have to ask myself that too. And I have to say, you know what? Maybe I will be 2 minutes late. Maybe I'll be 10 minutes late.
And what do most people do? They train that out of kids. They train being in the present moment out of their children. When really the rest of us that are trying to get back to the present moment. Yeah. And we're like, oh, wow, if only that wasn't trained out of us as children, we'd be more better. I don't know.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why I think children are such a gift and we can learn so much from them. I think we should be taking the courses from the kids and not the other way around, because I think we have actually got it wrong. We've got to kind of get back to what children do naturally. They're present.
Play.
They play.
Enjoy, smile.
They enjoy the moment. They see the small things. They smell the flowers. They just live life in such a pure way that it reminds me that I'm like, hey, you know what? I could have done better. I have to own up to that.
Right.
I could have led better load management, better time management. I'm working on those things consistently. So let me take myself to the drawing board and make a mental note. I need to wake up 10 minutes earlier when I have, to plan this or whatever it is that I have to do if I have to be somewhere by this time. But I don't need to take it out on my kids. And I don't need to explain the clock to them and tell them like, this is, there's things that I want to teach them, responsibility. It's important to be on time. You don't want to waste people's time.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's all a balance.
Right.
It really is. It's all a balance in everything. So I'm glad that you have found the balance.
Still trying.
Yeah.
I'm no master, that's for sure. I fall off the handle and then I forgive myself and I take a deep breath and I get right back on the horse. Right.
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
Well, I think you've said some really incredible and impactful things today.
I hope so.
I really enjoyed our conversation and the past day and a half that we've
got
to spend,
ice
bathing, working out, playing with the kids, doing all the great things.
Yes.
But I've certainly learned a lot, and I will absolutely plan a trip down to Tampa.
Yes.
Take the kids down with me, and we'll see what we can make of it. I'm really curious about the neural feedback.
Yep, it's good stuff.
Yeah, a few other things that you offer. So is the where you're at right now, could they come and see you like off the street?
So they can. I took the job as the Assistant Vice President of Veterans Clinical Research at the University of South Florida so that I can affect change on a global scale. So the university recognized what I was doing and where we're going, and we're trying to help a lot of veterans at this point. So we have a study funded by the Florida legislature that said, yes, we're going to try and treat more people. So anywhere between 450 and 600 people is what my number is going to be. And then we're going to do the clinical research and get the objective quality evidence that proves that we can help traumatic brain injury. So, but we don't know yet. It's science, and science wins over BS.
Yeah.
So.
And are you right? Have you written a book yet? It's due. No?
I wrote several books,
okay.
but I wrote a fiction book, which is just a ridiculous thing during COVID. I was bored, right? So I'm like writing during COVID, right?
That's a good idea. I should have wrote a book during COVID. Oh my God. That's
so
terrible.
This one, the next one that I have in the hopper that I just got signed up to do is why my traumatic brain injury is the best thing that ever happened to me. So I'm stoked to get that out because a lot of this is going in that book. Just stuff that you've cued me to right now is going in that book. Haven't written it yet, but it's going in there.
Any other books we should know?
Yeah, the Art and Science of Hyperbaric Medicine. That's the tell-all book about hyperbaric medicine, the mechanism of action. I'm writing that with Dr. Jason Saunders. I mean, we're like out there.
He's fantastic.
Isn't he great?
He's so good.
And he's getting his Ph.D. He was a doctor before. He was a chiropractor before, and now he's getting his Ph.D. in hyperbaric physiology. So it's like nobody knows more than him at this point.
I know. I love following him on Instagram because I always learn so much about the hyperbarics.
Anything in human physiology, right?
Yeah.
Like it's great. So he and I tag team that book, and that's almost done. That'll be ready for press by October. It's like, what else are you doing? I don't know. I'm just trying to put things together. The Tao of Survival Underwater, Secrets in Depth was the, it's like just write, man, get it out there. Hopefully that withstands the test of time, and then maybe in 100 years from now, somebody may remember. Like, who's this old guy with the long hair? What's up with that?
I bet you with the direction you're going and affecting people's lives, saving people's lives, I mean, that's just one of the most notable things. I don't care who you are, what you do. If you are out there trying to impact the world in a growthful way, in a helpful way, then I think you're doing it right. So thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to share this episode with the listeners.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by the International Hyperbaric Association.